Good morning, children. In the last class, we were doing a story from Treasure Trove. It is this book, Hearts and Hands. The story is on page 69. It is by O. Henry. I already read the introduction to the author, and here we see two young men enter the train at Denver station. A big crowd entered the train actually, and they sat opposite a young lady. Her name is Miss Fairchild. I already discussed about that young lady because the only vacant seat was opposite to that lady. And she knew one man. She knew the young man. One was a glum-faced man, the other was a very handsome young man. So she knew this handsome young man, but when she saw that he was handcuffed to the person next to him, the smile on her face changed. She became pale. She was very puzzled. She wondered how her friend could be handcuffed. In this situation, the glum-faced man saves her, saves both the young man and the girl from embarrassment. And he said that this young man, this handsome young man, is a marshal, that is an officer, a federal officer. He is taking him to the prison at Leavenworth, and the punishment is 7 years in prison for counterfeiting. So the glum-faced man claimed that he was the marshal, that he was the prisoner, he was the convict. That is, the glum-faced man claimed that he himself was a convict, and the other was the marshal taking him to Leavenworth prison. So this he said like this in order to save embarrassment for both of them. They knew each other, and not only that, they were not just friends, there was some attachment, some affection between them. So to save the situation, the glum-faced man claimed that he was the convict, and the other, his friend, was the marshal, and they are handcuffed. So this handcuff, on seeing the handcuff, the smile on the lady's face changed. Her name is Miss Fairchild, and she looked very concerned, very puzzled, very unhappy when she saw this. So we will continue from page 70. My dear Miss Fairchild, said Easton calmly, middle of that page, I had to do something. Money has a way of taking wings unto itself. And you know, it takes money to keep step with our crowd in Washington. So evidently he took the position of this marshalship because he wanted money. And to live in the same style as the others are living in Washington, he needed money. So that is why he is saying he took up this position of marshalship. But it is not quite as high a position as that of ambassador. He says like that in order to explain to her that the position which he took is lower than that of the ambassador. She is actually puzzled, how could he become a marshal? How could, his name is Mr. Easton, how could Mr. Easton become a marshal? So to explain that, he said that it is not such a high position as that of an ambassador. The ambassador, said the girl warmly, doesn't call anymore. He needn't ever have done so. You ought to know that. And so now you are one of those dashing Western heroes. You are an ambassador, and your way of living also must have changed, and you ride and shoot and go into all kinds of dangers. That is different from the Washington life. You have been missed from the old crowd. So he has gone to the West, he has left Washington, and the girl's eyes, fascinated, went back, widening a little to rest upon the glittering handcuffs. Again the handcuffs puzzles her, and she looks concerned. She looks worried. And it is the other man, the glum-faced man, who comes to the rescue. Don't you worry about them, miss, said the other man. All marshals handcuff themselves to their prisoners to keep them from getting away. Mr. Easton knows his business. So the glum-faced man, he claimed that he was the prisoner, and Mr. Easton, her friend, was the marshal. And the reason for the handcuffs was, it is natural for marshals to handcuff themselves to prevent their prisoners from escaping. Will we see you soon in Washington? Asked the girl. Not so soon, I think, said Mr. Easton. My butterfly days are over. I wasted time, I lived a leisurely life, and those days are over. Now I have to do work in order to earn money. So my leisurely style of living, my luxurious style of living is over now, and I cannot spend money as I like. I love the West, said the girl irrelevantly, not connected with the topic. She says she also likes to be in the West. And he has taken up this job of a marshal in the West. Her eyes were shining softly. She looked away out of the car window, that is the train, out of the train window, and began to speak truly and simply without the gloss of style and manner. Mama and I spent summer in Denver. She went home a week ago because father was slightly ill. I could live and be happy in the West. Since he has taken a job in the West, the job of a marshal, Miss Fairchild claims that she will also be happy living in the West. She can leave the crowd in Washington and come to the West. So they are evidently having some love affair between themselves. I think the air here agrees with me. Money isn't everything. So she says, money is not everything. There are other things which are more important than money. That is the relationships. But people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. People are not able to understand that money is not everything in life. There are things more important than money. See, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. Now, Mr. Easton, before giving himself up, before telling the real situation, the glum-faced man tries to tell him that it is time we leave for a smoke. We have to go. Because he does not want Mr. Easton to tell any secrets, that is that he is the marshal and Mr. Easton is the criminal, he is the convict, he is the prisoner. He does not want Miss Fairchild to know that. And he is afraid that Mr. Easton will accidentally reveal the truth about this. So he saves the situation again and he says, let us go for a smoke. Say, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. Notice the word growl. But actually he is very kind, he is very generous, he tries to save Mr. Easton. So appearances do not matter at all. In appearance, Mr. Easton is young, handsome, frank, open. The other man is not smartly dressed. He looks upset, he's glum, he's gloomy. But actually he has a heart of gold. He helps Mr. Easton. Say, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. This isn't quite fair. I'm needing a drink. I haven't had a smoke all day. Let us go to the smoker room. Now he says like that to take Mr. Easton away so that he will not reveal himself. He will not reveal the truth to this young lady to whom he is evidently attached. Have you talked enough? Take me in the smoker room now, won't you? I am half dead for a pipe. I am eagerly longing to have a smoke. Now they have to go together because they are handcuffed. The bound travelers means the two travelers who are handcuffed to each other rose to their feet, Easton with the same slow smile on his face. I can't deny a petition for tobacco, so I can't refuse the desire that you have to smoke, so let us go together. I can't deny a petition for tobacco, he said lightly, that is carelessly. It is the one friend of the unfortunate. Unfortunate, unlucky people who are facing trouble, misery, they try to get rid of their problems by having a smoke, by having a cigarette. Goodbye, Miss Fairchild. Duty calls, you know. So I have to go on with my duties. He held out his hand for a farewell. It's too bad you're not going east. You're going west instead of going east. You're not going to Washington, she said, reclothing herself with manner and style. But you must go on to Leavenworth, I suppose. It's sad that you have to go on to Leavenworth to take your prisoner there. Yes, said Easton, I must go on to Leavenworth. The two men sidled down the aisle because they are walking side by side, they are handcuffed, so they have to occupy only little space. So they sidle, they can't walk straight. The two men sidled down the aisle into the smoker. The two passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. Said one of them, that is the people sitting in the next seat, they had heard this conversation. Said one of them, that Marshall is a good sort of chap. That Marshall refers to the glum-faced man who in reality is the Marshal. And the handsome young man, the companion of Miss Fairchild, is the real prisoner. He has to be punished. He is the one who has to be taken to Leavenworth prison. And the glum-faced man, the Marshal, is taking him. And these two passengers sitting in the seat behind have understood the reality of the situation and they are commenting. Said one of them, the Marshal is a good sort of chap. Some of these Western fellows are all right. Pretty young to hold an office like that, isn't he? Asked the other. Easton is too young to hold such a high position as a Marshal. Young? Exclaimed the first speaker. Why? Oh, didn't you catch on? Didn't you understand? Didn't you realize the correct situation? Say, did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner to his right hand? Marshals use their left hand and they handcuff their left hand to the right hand of the prisoner. But here, the right hand it is the other way around here. The Marshal's left hand is handcuffed to the right hand of the prisoner. So here they have understood the situation. Now, so in reality, the glum-faced man is the Marshal. He is a very generous person. He is a very kind person, and he helps the Mr. Easton from a very embarrassing situation. So Easton's right hand was handcuffed to the left hand of the Marshal, and the two passengers sitting by the side seat, they understood immediately that Mr. Easton was the convict and the Marshal was the glum-faced man. From the conversation and from the position of the handcuff, this situation was very clear to the passengers. Now we will stop with the story here, and I will give you the notes. You can read the story, and before giving the notes, I hope you will read this a few times.